Hi, my name is Aaron, this is my show Re-Education, and I woke up this morning to a few headlines in the news that were a little bit disconcerting, and I'm going to read them to you now. Recession ahead, a reliable warning light is blinking yes, San Francisco Chronicle 16 hours ago. Weak consumer spending and trade war madness fuel recession chances, Forbes 14 hours ago. Recession talk returns, why economists are freaking out about bonds, Forbes, May 31st. The recurring recession fear, New York Magazine, May 30th. Donald Trump's war on cars is pushing U.S. ever closer to a recession, The Verge, 11 hours ago. The low unemployment rate could actually be a recession indicator, Barron's, Charles May Schwab 31st. Strategist, recession may be recession a 2020 start event. When no one Yahoo sees them Finance, coming, May Forbes, 29th. May 26th. Surefire, Apparel recession retail signals earnings haven't been this bad since the Great May 28th. CNBC, the next recession May will 31st. Come. This recession
U.S.
now.
Forbes,
not
May
over 2007. Frenzy as recession
Yahoo
Finance, May 30th.
The
Ask a fool which stocks will perform best during the next recession. What companies should do to prepare for May 31st. Harvard Business
How to raise wages
9th.
before the next
Is a recession coming in
Bloomberg,
2019?
May 31st.
Economists say data has distinct predictors. In the next recession,
Newsweek,
you can
May
make
28th.
money rather than lose it. Forbes, 14 hours ago. Now, I've been getting a lot of blowback lately about how a lot of the things I say are ominous or apocalyptic. So it's probably a good idea for me to make a joke at this point to lighten the mood a little bit. Donald Trump's skin color is orange. Did I do it? Did I make a joke? Is the mood lighter yet? I sure hope so. I assume that's what you consider a joke. I know that liberals can't quite get enough of that one. But personally, I haven't been able to laugh for the last 3 years. So instead, I might just leave the comedy to the people who do comedy professionally, and I'll give you the numbers and my commentary along with it. And, without further ado, here are the numbers. America's paychecks are bigger than 40 years ago, but their purchasing power has hardly budged. Productivity versus average real earnings has shown that since the 1970s, the regular average earnings of the regular person have basically stagnated. Up until that point, they were on a steady curve upwards, but now they have basically flatlined, while, as you can see in the graph shown beside me here, that the production or productivity of those workers has steadily gone up. Between 1987 and 2013, the number of billionaires rose from 140 to 1,400. Their total wealth has risen from $300 billion to $5,400 billion. That's such a large number that I don't even really know how to pronounce it properly. U.S. household debt rises to $13.3 trillion in this year. In 2008, just before the crash, it was at $12.68 trillion. That's a lot more. U.S. corporate debt has risen from $40 trillion to $70 trillion since the top of the last bubble in 2007. That's 63% in 10 years. It's risen 135% since 2000. U.S. national debt hits record $22 trillion this year. On January 20th, 2009, it stood at $10 trillion. This is, as I've said before, the everything bubble. Everything is incredibly overblown with debt. And this is just a small sampling of the things that are actually going on. I have 2 other videos that talk more in depth about what is going on that I made about 6 months ago, where I outlined how I think that there's probably going to be a recession coming. And everybody that, well, at least a lot of people that commented on those first few videos thought that I was just insane for saying something like that. I mean, the economy was doing so well. Look at the job numbers. Look at the GDP. Look at how high the Dow and the S&P 500 have gotten, blah, blah, blah. So there were signs all along that said that there was going to be something that was going to happen. And now, all of a sudden, it seems that the mass media has caught up. But if the mass media, the corporate-run state media, is talking about this, there has to be some sort of reason. I mean, they don't just warn people about things like this. This means that everybody that's in finance, in business, and so forth, have completely had all the time needed to prepare for this. And now it's time that they might give a little bit of information to the public. That's how all of this works. You see, I don't just get these numbers as those business people get them. I get these because I happen to be interested in this stuff, so I look it up. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to get the numbers immediately. That's something that only the people that are buying and trading and doing this for their day job would know how to do. I'm just some asshole on the internet. I just Google search shit, and this is what I come up with. These billionaires, these businessmen, these CEOs, they have their fingers in many different pies. They have a very good understanding of what's going on in the stock market, because really they manipulate and play the damn thing all the fucking time. So basically now we, as the public, the general public, the proletariat, we are finally being warned of what the businessmen and all of those people have known for several months, if not close to a year and a half already. It's easy to see how terrible the system is and how broken that it is just by walking down your street. You've seen every time that you leave your house and go to Walmart or Starbucks that your local grocery store or your local clothing outlet has probably boarded up its windows and shut down. Your local coffee shop that isn't Starbucks probably doesn't exist anymore. A lot of these multinational chains have become monopolies, or duopolies if you want, or triopolies. They allow for a certain number of other businesses to get in on that industry, but inevitably you have a select small few number of businesses that basically own and control all of the means of production in your area and every area all across the West, all across basically the entire world at this point. And they're using it to extract more wealth for themselves and give to the people fuck all. Less jobs, or more jobs, but less good jobs, less well-paying jobs. Now, I know I'm going to get dissenters on this and people that are going to pull that, oh my God, Trump is amazing and the economy is doing fantastic line. But by what metric are you judging how well the economy is actually doing? Are you looking at, I don't know, job numbers? Because those job numbers really don't say a whole hell of a lot. When you're replacing all of the good jobs that your grandfather or your father had with shit, terrible jobs that barely pay minimum wage, that isn't really an improvement. You can have an economy with a 100% employment rate and still have people that are suffering. Just look at slavery, for example. But what other indicators could you possibly say are making the economy do better? Maybe you are a brainless no-mind like Stuart Varney and you think that somehow the average wage is a good indicator that our economy is doing fantastic. I mean, the average wage in America is something like $600,000 a year. Well, that seems like a lot, doesn't it? And it sure sounds like if you're not making $600,000 a year and the average throughout America is $600,000 a year, then you must be doing something wrong. You must not be working hard enough to be able to get what everybody else is clearly making, the average of what everyone is making. But unfortunately, that doesn't take into consideration that a homeless person that has $1 and Jeff Bezos that has $17 billion, the average between those two people is about $8 billion. It doesn't really seem like the average is a good way to determine those factors. A much better way to determine those factors would be the median income. You know, where you take those groups, that group that's closer to being homeless and the group that's closer to being Jeff Bezos, and you split them apart and you look at the actual numbers in each one of those groups. And when you do that, you get quite a different result. You actually get numbers that are quite a bit different. In the bottom half, you see that the numbers are right around, I believe, $97,000 to $100,000. Quite a bit off from that $600,000 that we heard earlier, but it goes even deeper than that. Because that's just the median of everybody in that block. But we're not talking about the people that are hit by this the most. Millennials and Generation Z. Those people, their median average income is, I believe, between $8,000 and $11,000. That's it. That's everything. That's nothing. And if you want to use the stock market as a barometer for how good the economy is doing, my galaxy-brained friends, you need look no further than the Dow. Dow appears set for longest weekly losing streak in 8 years. Oh, maybe the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. Let's see about those. Oh, no, it looks like the S&P 500 ended the month down 6.6%. And the central banks all over the world are starting to buy gold. What does that mean? Well, that means basically what we've been worried about for so long, or at least what America and the rest of the West has been worried about for so long. That means that the rest of the world is thinking about moving away from the United States dollar. That means that if the United States does enter into a recession, or God help us, a depression, they won't be able to just print money to get out of that problem. That means that if they try to print money, they'll suffer the same consequences as every other country that's ever tried printing money to get them out of a recession. They go into an inflationary recession, where all of the goods all of a sudden start costing more and more money. But of course, you're paying the workers more and more money to keep up. But what does that do? Well, that means that even though the wages are going up and even though the prices are going up, they're staying about the same because there's only a certain amount of labor, there's only a certain amount of goods, and then they print more money to make up for that. It doesn't change anything. The only thing it does change is the set fixed amount of money in your bank account. That means that it's basically a tax on your bank account. That money in there is going to be worth less. Who even knows how much less? And of course, businessmen realize this. This is why they've known this for months now. What they've been doing is trying to make money off of this recession. As I said before, Forbes, one of the first articles they put out in the last 14 hours, was how you can make money off of this recession. And it outlines a couple of pretty obvious things. Liquidate. A lot of these businesses are going to start trying to liquidate their cash. That means getting as much money out of their businesses or out of their assets as they possibly can, so they have liquid money and they don't have to worry about losing things. So that means if capitalists own businesses, they're going to cut costs, cut labor, cut resources, and make sure that they always rebuild their bottom line, their personal bank accounts. That's the whole idea. You as an individual probably don't have the opportunity to just fire a bunch of your employees so you can keep a lot more of your cash. The other thing is that if the market does fall into an inflationary debt spiral, and it is basically a tax on your bank account, then the people with enough money are just going to take their bank accounts and move them offshore to a place that they don't have to worry about where this inflation is happening. They have the resources to do that. You don't. Now, before we jump into things that could help us with this problem, I want to go through the latest issue, the big to-do that's been on everybody's mind lately onto why we're having this crash happen now, and that's the trade talks with China. And basically the flipping of the yield curve. Now, a nominal yield curve is one in which longer maturity bonds have a higher yield compared with shorter term bonds due to the risks associated with the time. An inverted yield curve is one in which the shorter term yields are higher than the longer term yields, which can be a sign of upcoming recession. That basically means that a 10-year loan and a 10-month loan have switched the amount of money that people are paying on interest. So usually you would pay less interest on a 10-year loan than you would on a 10-month loan. Well, that's switched. That's because there's a lot of uncertainty being seen in the market 10 years down the line. And an inverted yield curve almost always signifies that there's going to be a recession, and that's exactly what we see right now. And of course, the rare earth mineral argument, and I'm going to go through it very quickly because I don't have a lot of battery left on my camera. China produces 78% of rare earth minerals. They own 40% of the global resources. 80% of the US supply of those rare earth minerals come from China, and 59% of those exports are used in electronics, guidance systems, and wind turbines. That means no cell phones, no cars, at least not electric ones, no TVs, no anything. They basically use rare earth minerals in almost all of our modern day electronics. In batteries. They're incredibly important in rechargeable batteries and in motors, in electric motors. So if you have anything with a battery or an electric motor, then you're probably not going to be able to get it, at least not for cheap. And that's a really interesting situation to be in, and just another one of the reasons why we're seeing such a shake in the market at this current point. Now, it is possible that those trade talks could result in a good deal for both parties, though it is kind of unlikely at this point. It might happen, and if it does, then the economy might look like it's doing a bit better. And all of these alarm bells that were going off might have been somewhat false alarms, but they still haven't fixed the underlying problems. Now, what can you do? Well, one thing that you can definitely think about doing is possibly buying food or buying specific food items whenever they come on for cheap. I'm not saying that you should do this with all of your money, but I am saying that it is somewhat important to be able to have a certain amount of reserve products or what have you, things that you need in case there is an economic recession and it's hard to get those items. Now, another important thing, and something that I stress constantly, probably the most important thing that you could possibly do, is get out there and talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your coworkers, talk to people in similar communities as you, not just online, but in person, more importantly, in person. If you're LGBT, get involved in LGBT groups. If you're a Marxist-Leninist, go to a fucking Marxist-Leninist picnic. It doesn't matter what it is. Try to get out there and get involved in different group activities. Get involved with your church even. Get involved with any number of groups so you can build bonds with people, so you can actually build solidarity and community with people. Because if there is an economic recession, if there is a crash, you're going to need to rely on real human people to help you out in those situations. And if you do, as I said in the first place, and keep a certain amount of goods, toilet paper, extra peanut butter, what have you, you might have something to trade those people if there's no money or resources or goods available when a crash happens. Community is the most important. Unity is the most important thing in real life. And you have to build those bonds now. You have to get those structures built now, or else when the time comes, you're not going to be prepared. The other thing that we have to start doing, and this is something that I stress the most, is direct action. If there is protests, if there are sit-ins, if there are walkouts, if there are any organized group activities happening in your area, go get involved. Get in there, get a megaphone, and start talking about socialist solutions to these problems. Small groups of people, as I've talked about in the past, affinity groups, are able to change large amounts of people's minds if they have the right abilities, if they're able to actually go out there and express to the people what they think, how they feel, and the actual solutions that are there. These are all ways that we can actually go about helping our communities, helping the people that are in our vicinity, and making life a little bit easier for yourself and for all of them too. When you have community, when you've built bonds, you can get certain things a lot easier than you otherwise could. For example, I know a few people that work at grocery stores, and when they're going to throw away the extra food, Some of those grocery stores allow the employees to buy them at a discounted price. Well, I just use my small limited amount of cash and give it to those people that I know work at those grocery stores, and they are able to provide to me a bunch of excess goods that they otherwise wouldn't do anything with, but I have the room to be able to keep those things and hold on to them in case there's something I need to use them for to trade. Those are all important things that you need to take into consideration. Join up with anarchist groups, food not bombs groups. All of these things are super duper important, incredibly important. So get out there, get active, and try to see what you can do in your community. And for those of you that are completely unable to get out there and actually do things in your community and actually build those bonds, see what you can do online. See if you can build on any of the online communities that you happen to be a part of. Get a hold of people that are local that are also online. Say online Facebook groups in your community that have similar interests to you. If you're able to build community that way, hopefully those people will be able to help you in real life in the long run too. These are all things that you need to take into consideration, and I'm sure that I left out millions more. So if you can come up with any, please put them in the comment section below, and hopefully we can use this as a resource for people to be able to look and find solutions and ways that they can help themselves in a crisis situation. Anyway, this video has been very long. I'm sorry about that. If you stuck all the way to the end, thank you very much for doing that. If you do get a chance, please take a look at my Patreon. Every dollar does help fund this show, and it makes it easier for me to actually put out frequent content. And other than that, thank you very much for watching. My name is Aaron. Have a good day.